I think people have this belief that, work is a necessary evil. And I think I don't agree. I think humans we're goal-driven beings. That's how we've survived and thrived as a species. That's how we've evolved, by working together in communities to move towards common goals. So it makes sense that our DNA and our minds have evolved to reward us for that. We like working in teams. We love sports for that reason, right? We love to be part of something. We love it when our team wins. We hate it when they lose. So the quality of life that we've got now compared to not very long ago, en masse, is dramatically different. And what it gives us, this quality of life that we've got today, which we don't recognize, is this amazing level of freedom and opportunity. Like, we've all got it. Like, the fact that you and I sat having this call now and not having to go and dig out rocks from a coal mine shows that we've got freedom and opportunity. We've got choice. We've got all these freedom that our ancestors just wouldn't have believed possible. So we've got this new lifestyle, which is incredible. But to really thrive in that environment where you've got freedom and opportunity, you've got to have a good level of self-confidence and self-belief.
My guest today is Mike Jones. Mike is the founder of Better Happy, an award-winning business consultancy. And Mike's insights into health, happiness, and high performance come from his experience in the military, living in monasteries in Nepal, and owning his own businesses. And he's also the author of the soon-to-be-released The Happy Business Revolution. Mike, welcome to the show.
Hello, Jean. Thank you for having me on. Pleasure to be here.
Good to have you. When is the book due for release?
Oh, I've got a date now. I think it's the 15th or 16th of August. One of those two.
I was hoping you'd have a date. So, have you pre-orders available?
Or no, we're not going to do pre-order. So we'll start shouting about it and regularly telling people about the date, which is the 15th, I think, of August, over the coming weeks. So there's some marketing reasons why you don't do pre-order. Apparently, I don't understand it. That's what the publishers told me.
Good to know. Well, we'll make sure that we get the link in when it's when you guys are putting it out there. So
yeah, we got a waiting list page as well. So if you want to get an early copy, then you can put your name in there, so I can chat.
I'll do that. I'll put that into the links.
Cool.
So I'm curious. What's the mission that you're on at the moment? You've got this book coming out. What's that mission that you're on, and how did your background influence it?
Good question. And I'm not a marketing genius, so I haven't got one succinct, perfectly rehearsed statement to summarize my mission, but it's really along the lines of making work happy. So transforming the world of work for employees, for business owners, for teams, so that businesses can reach their potential and employees and owners can reach their potential together. That's my vision, that businesses are reaching their potential with employees and with owners, not at the expense of employees and or owners. And the reason for that is kind of multifaceted, really. I think serving in the military, I did 5 years in the military, 2 tours of Afghanistan. At times I was very happy in the military, and times I was very unhappy. So I came out of that very philosophical, wanting to learn more about life and about the mind. And I didn't really understand philosophy or spirituality at that point, but I knew I wasn't very happy. Then I had the experiences of living on monasteries in Thailand and Nepal over a kind of 2.5 year period. So that opened my eyes to a different way of thinking to what we're commonly taught in the Western world, if you'd like to put it that way. So then I thought, okay, right, life's about being happy, and you find happiness through contribution and through helping others in different ways. And obviously you've in a capitalist society, you've got to make money as well from doing that. So I thought, well, how can you help people and make money through your job, through your work, through your businesses? So I started my first business and achieved that. Like we had a really great little business. We were really truly transforming people's health and fitness and lives. But over that period of having that first business, I got very burnt out myself. So it's kind of like, okay, well, I'd learned that helping other people makes you happy, but I'm burnt out and depressed now. So then, and lots of the people I worked with whilst I had that business were business owners. And I realized this is a common theme. Like, they were coming in, and because we had a gym, and they were coming in and they were like, oh, I'm so stressed. I'm so burnt out. Don't spend any time with my kids. I've had a heart attack. I'm only 42 years old. And you're like, right, okay. So this is a common theme. So when I came out of the business, owning my first business and going through that burnout period, I kind of went through this stage of, do I just go and get a job? But I knew that me getting a job was a escapism mechanism. I knew that I'd be probably happy for a few months because I've got the comfort of a job, of a steady salary without having to worry about all the different aspects of a business. But I knew I was kind of sacrificing my higher passion, so that would catch up with me and I'd be unhappy. So I came to the conclusion, well, I have to figure out how to own a business and be happy, and that actually founded created the foundation about happy as a business.
So that's what sets you off on this journey. You've worked with entrepreneurs, helping them to be happy, helping them to be fit, healthy, high performing, but in the process, you burn yourself out. And
yeah, well, the first business was actually a health and fitness business, so it wasn't really yes, high performance is a part of health and fitness, but it really was fitness. It's like, look, you want to be healthier and fitter, come to us. And we started to attract a lot of business owners, but it wasn't positioned at business owners. But I think because we were a more premium facility and a higher price range and a high level of service, I think that's naturally who we attracted a lot of business owners, but it wasn't necessarily just who we were targeting.
yeah, when you talk about how things are different in the Western world, and was it 3 years you spent in the monastery in Nepal?
Well, I was away for 2.5 years. Probably half of that time was traveling on monasteries and different cultures and living with monks, and about half of it was living in Australia.
And I mean, there's a lot of talk about sort of, mindset and being intentional and those kind of things. What do you take away from that time that you've brought into the way that you're working with companies at the moment?
So I think in I suppose I'll start with the major difference between Western philosophy and Eastern philosophy, which is a massive generalization. I was in Nepal and Thailand, so and I was in mainly with Buddhist cultures. So when I say Western and Eastern, I mean my experience of the UK,
Yeah,
and Buddhist culture in Thailand and Nepal. So there's some different um, philosophies that drive how people go about their lives. So in the West, we're very driven by status and success. And that's obviously heavily influenced by the fact that we're a capitalist society. So we're a capitalist democracy, which I've got no qualms with. I think it's a great opportunity to be born into a well functioning capitalist society where you're not majorly at risk of or worried about on a daily basis war, even though obviously the times we're in at the moment. But generally speaking, and most of us don't wake up and hear bombs going off or
yeah,
worry about how we're going to feed ourselves. So our philosophy is very much around success and fitting in and being financially successful, being popular, whatever it might be, looking a certain way. We're very, on a surface level, I think we're very materialistic, and you can argue a little bit shallow. It's all about image and popularity and all this stuff. And then over in the Eastern world, where I spent my time in the Eastern world, the philosophy, especially if you're with monks, which obviously I was heavily influenced by, is around happiness. But the whole view of happiness is different. They view happiness as fulfillment, as a sense of fulfillment and peace. Whereas I think in the West, we have a view of happiness as pleasure. We are happy when we are stress-free and at pleasure. So if we're on holiday, we view ourselves as happy if we're having fun with friends. So all of these things, of course, there's a crossover. But I think largely in the Western world, it's status and pleasurable feelings. Whereas over in the East, it's much more about this kind of sense of fulfillment and inner peace. So that started to change my focus in life. I think before I had those experiences, I wanted to be successful. I wanted people to look up to me. I wanted to have the status. I wanted to have the car. I wanted to have the relationship. I wanted to have all the nice things so that people viewed me as successful. Whereas when I came away from the traveling experiences, I wanted to be fulfilled and peaceful.
yeah.
And it's that fulfillment now that drives me to work, not the desire to prove myself or to reach a certain status. It's that I'm actually driven by mainly, but I'm still a human being. I've still got an ego, but I'm
Yeah.
mainly driven by the desire to feel fulfilled and make sure that I've made good use of my time on this planet.
So whether you're driving a truck or working in a hotel or kind of doing the turnaround in an airline,
Mm.
there's some feeling of sense of purpose that you're deriving out of that work that you're doing. That's kind of linked to your overall happiness in life. Is that it's
Yeah, I
not
think,
just
yeah, we work. I think people have this belief that, work is a necessary evil. And I think I don't agree. I think humans we're goal driven beings. That's how we've survived and thrived as a species. That's how we've evolved, by working together in communities to move towards common goals. So it makes sense that our DNA and our minds have evolved to reward us for that. We like working in teams. We love sports for that reason, right? We love to be part of something. We love it when our
yeah
team wins. We hate it when they lose. We're goal driven beings. We want to achieve. And you work, I think historically a lot of this was found, this fulfillment, this meaning, uh, this being a part of a community and moving towards a common goal was found through religion, and it still is in many parts of the world. But for more people in like the UK, for example, religion is less popular.
yeah
So you end up with I don't think people are conscious of it, but I think you end up with a spiritual void. And when that spiritual void's not being fulfilled, because whether you view yourself as religious or spiritual or not, I believe you are spiritual. You're you're a being that is part of a bigger thing, and you've got this hard wiring within you that makes you want to work with people, that makes you want to collaborate, that makes you want to be part of a thing, that makes you want to move towards goals. That's your spirit, right? So if you're not finding that through religion, well, where do you find it through? And I think probably one of the most important places people find it through now is through their work. Now, of course, through family and community as well, but a
yeah
lot of people, it's through their work. So you're not just working to get paid. That's important. And if you are just working to get paid, you're probably sacrificing a lot of happiness in your life. But yeah, you're working to get paid, but you're working to fulfill your spiritual desires as well.
yeah. And you make such a good point. Work is such a big part of our lives. There's this void in terms of the spiritual side, and there's stats around engagement of kind of 33% of people are actually engaged at work.
Mm.
How do how do you improve that? I mean, I kind of get on the underground or the bus or whatever, and I see folks sitting looking at their phones, and it almost is obvious that the last thing they want to be doing is going to work.
Work, yeah.
How do you think about that? And
So I think about this a lot actually, and I again, it's my opinion. So nobody can say that they know this stuff for a fact. But in my opinion, when you live in a time like we do, which is, if we compared, if we flew back in time 150 years ago, 100 years ago, pre World War II, you read Road to Wigan Pier by George Orwell, and you read about the quality of life in the UK, like a relatively well developed country, less than 100 years ago. And if you brought those people forwards to today, to the lives that we've got, they'd be like, "Oh my god, like what? This is incredible.
yeah,
You don't have to work 15 hours a day in a horrible back-breaking job. You don't have to go down the coal mines to get paid a pittance so that you can then go home to a two up, two down flat where you share a toilet with 10 other people." Now, and again, I don't want to sound overly privileged here, but I am. I am privileged to live in a country like the UK, but there's still people that live like this now. But my point is that 100 years ago, this is the norm in a country like the UK, that people shared toilets. They couldn't have a bath because there was no, there was a one shared bath between 10 flats. So the quality of life that we've got now compared to not very long ago, en masse,
yeah,
is dramatically different. And what it gives us, this quality of life that we've got today, which we don't recognize, is this amazing level of freedom and opportunity. Like, we've all got it. Like, the fact that you and I sat having this call now and not having to go and dig out rocks from a coal mine shows that we've got freedom and opportunity. We've got choice. We've got all of these freedom that our ancestors just wouldn't have believed possible. So we've got this new lifestyle, which is incredible. But to really thrive in that environment where you've got freedom and opportunity, you've got to have a good level of self-confidence and self-belief, and a level of being what I call sensibly selfish for you to thrive in that environment. And it's kind of like, again, I'm getting a bit spiritual, but it's like, if you believe in a God, let's say, the God is, or God, however you want to refer to him or her or it,
yeah,
has said, right, here you go, humans. I'm gifting you with all the freedom and opportunity to go and pursue whatever you want to pursue. All of that, all you've ever wanted, I'm going to give it to you. And then you're kind of like in this environment where you're like, oh man, but for me to go and chase my goals and to find out what's important to me and to do all that inner work, that takes a level of confidence and self-belief. And the reality is most of us don't have a very good level of confidence and self-belief. So what we end up doing is we don't utilize that opportunity. We get stuck in jobs we don't like. We spend our time scrolling through our phones. We drink too much. We eat too much. We try and fulfill our uh, sensual needs because we're not fulfilling our spiritual needs, and then we end up feeling unhappy and a bit lost in life, and a little bit like, I come straight back to that image that you just said, sitting on the
Yeah.
underground, just looking down, just going, another day, another dollar, same problems, all of that kind of stuff. And then you're not happy, right? Because you're just floating through life, working in a job you don't like, to pay for stuff you don't need, to hang around with people you probably don't like. So it takes confidence to thrive in this new environment. And I think the way that you address this engagement issue is you work on your employees' confidence. You help your teams be confident and have self-belief so that they can be the best versions of themselves. But that's a very new way of doing things in business, and it's not the way that businesses used to do things.
Yeah, and what kind of reception do you get to that coming in and talking about that? Because I think you're right. We don't realize how good we've got it at the moment, on both sides, on both the owner, the CEO, and the employees.
Mm.
We do live in a world where we have remarkable access to, as you said, doing these kind of things and
Yep.
not being down in the coal mines. But
Yep.
how do you work with clients to help them to kind of figure this out?
Well, I think you had two questions there. So the first one was how do you get how do people receive this, and how
How
do
do
you
it?
work
Yeah,
with clients? So with the how do they receive it, you've got to position it in the right way, because it can very easily sound like an ideological philosophy,
that's what I was thinking. Yeah,
which it is, I suppose, right? It is ideological. In the ideological world, everyone would be happy at work. Everyone does a job they like, and the businesses perform really well because all the staff are really happy, and we're all singing and dancing. That's the ideal. Now, that's a little bit harder to achieve than just saying it, but we can certainly move significantly more towards that than what we are. So when I'm talking to businesses about it, whether it's a big corporate or a smaller or medium business, we've got to link it to tangible things, because ideas are great, but what's okay? That sounds lovely, but we got a business, we got bills to pay. We don't want to be losing money, we want to be
yeah,
making money, like yada yada yada. So we have to link it to the tangible things. So if your staff are happy, if you're developing the confidence of your staff, and you're working to create an environment that brings the best out in people, including you, the owner and the leader, and you change away from the old way of doing. And this is a key thing that we highlight. That the old way of doing business isn't very well aligned to the new environment. So again, oversimplification, but the old way was an industrial business, which is we produce products on a production line. There's mass unemployment. Employer can exploit employee because they don't want to be unemployed. They come in, pay them the minimum acceptable wage to keep people in. There's a repetitive task. Get on with it. Work until your back hurts. Then we'll just get somebody else in. That's the old way of doing it. Now, of course, there are companies that treated their staff well, but generally the ball used to be in the employer's court, right? If you've got mass unemployment, it's an employer's marketplace, isn't it?
yeah.
Because people are desperate to get work. Now we're in a different time, so there's a few things that have changed. Like the UK reported in 2021 that for the first time since records began, there were more job vacancies than unemployed people. So it's an employees court now. Employees. There's lots of businesses. There's lots of different types of jobs. Stuff changed very quickly. So employees aren't, or less and less are working for you because they think they have to, and they're working for you because they want to. So that's one thing you got to think about. Well, if you don't do this, then you're not going to attract good people, and you're going to lose people. So we can
And
link it to recruitment and retention.
and in part, the employee, I guess, needs to really think about the role that they want and the opportunity with the particular company that they're looking at. So instead of just kind of taking a job, because there's more available at the moment, really think about whether this is the place you want to work at and whether you're going to be happy there.
Yeah, like is it aligned? Is the culture of the company aligned to who you are and your kind of goals? Um, is the role specifically aligned to your strengths? But a part of that process is figuring out by making mistakes, right, or figuring out by through discomfort. So going
Yeah.
into roles that you think you're going to like but you don't like, you're like, okay, why didn't I like this? So that's just part of the learning process. And going into companies where you feel like you're really excited about the culture, but then you're not. That's a learning experience for you and for the company, because there's no right or wrong in regards to culture. You've got to pick what culture is right for your business, and you've got to set that and lead with it. And that's some people are going to love it, some people are going to hate it. There's no right or wrong. I think we get a lot of virtue signaling, don't we, at the moment? It's like all companies should have beanbags out, and
Yes, it's true.
everybody wants to work 4 days a week and all of this stuff, and it's like, well,
Yes.
no, some companies and some people who are happy to work 6-7 days a week and get paid loads of money. Well, fine.
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong. So yeah, you've got to think about how you position yourself in regards to driving the recruitment and retention in your business and productivity, right? So the business environment that we're in today, again, is very different. So again, simplistic overview, but if you go back in time, it's kind of like you've got big giants and they're very slow changing, and it's very difficult for anybody that's not super wealthy to disrupt the business world as such. Today, that couldn't be any more different, right? You can have a laptop, you can be in Nigeria, you can start a business. If you've got an
Yeah.
internet connection and a laptop, and you can disrupt an industry. So today things change very quickly. So all businesses pretty much most businesses have to be quite innovative and open to change. So again, if you need employees to just kind of do repetitive tasks, it doesn't really matter how engaged they are. But again, it does if you're thinking about retention and recruitment. But if you need people to come in and be proactive and positive about change and coming up with new ideas and trying stuff and growing and driving the business forwards, you've got to have engaged employees. You've got to
Yeah.
have people that are happy, because if they're not, they're going. People that aren't happy at work do the minimum required to not get fired. So that's not going to grow your business. So we link it to that. We link it to productivity. We link it to recruitment and retention. We help businesses and business owners and business leaders and managers see that if you want to enjoy work and you want your business to perform to its best, it's in your best interest to have happy, motivated employees en masse. And if you've got mainly unhappy employees that you're just paying to do a task and there's no culture, the reality is your business can still perform. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not going to pretend that it can't. Like, a business can perform without happy employees. It's just not going to be very efficient, and you put yourself at a lot of risk of being taken over by competition. But a big part is that efficiency piece. It's going to cost you a lot of money in recruitment. It's going to cost you a lot of money in replacing people. It's going to cost you a lot of money in productivity and lost clients because your staff don't care. So you're losing clients that you don't need to. So, but it can work. Definitely your business can work with unhappy employees, because there are people that will turn up day in, day out, do the minimum required to not get fired.
Yeah. Just it feels like there's been a big change in the workforce. I think, kind of as we went into COVID and went through a pandemic, there's there was they talked about the mass exodus of folks from different roles, and I almost feel like there was this point where people want to feel more valued in the role they have. And I think maybe the real connection there is not so much just kind of the mass resignation, but this feeling of not being valued in the work that they're doing or the role that they're in. And I imagine for the companies that are consciously investing in the kind of work that you do and in an overall employee experience, are actually ultimately more valuable companies. And I know you do some work in that space as well. Are you seeing a correlation with that? And I mean, it would seem obvious, but
I think values of companies, as you know, is it's a bit of an esoteric art, isn't it? It's very, if that's the right word. So it's so up for debate. Like the value of a house, right? The value of a
yeah,
house is what somebody's willing to pay for it. So, but then you've got the market average and you've got things that affect it. So I think when when you think about the big motivators of potential buyers when it comes to business, one and key warning signs that they're going to look out for, which could significantly increase or decrease the value, the multiplier. So there's a couple of things that are going to be affected by the happiness and retention levels of your employees. Number one is the potential value that somebody's going to pay for it, and then number two is the attractiveness to a buyer. So it's going to make it more sellable, and then yes, it can have a big impact on the value of the company, because if you've got a happy team and they're clearly happy and you've got high levels of retention, and the buyer can see that they're all engaged in their work. They're not just here because they're friends with Jean, the owner. They actually
Yeah.
like the work. They find the work meaningful. They're motivated. They're open to change and innovation, and they're not all going to up seats and leave when the owner's gone and sulk about change. Well, that has a massive impact on what somebody's going to pay for your business. Whereas if the team's just kind of there and they're just doing the day in, day out, and the only reason they're there is because it's what they've always done, they're not particularly motivated, then the person that's looking to buy it knows that as soon as they buy it's going to be hard work.
Yeah.
These people are going to be difficult, or if they're only there because they like the owner,
Yeah.
it's going to be difficult because they're all going to leave.
They're going to leave. I think our mutual friend Nick Bradley talks about the first exit and the ability to step away from the business so that it runs by itself. And I think having those happy, engaged employees who've got a really strong sense of purpose. So whether you talk an exit, succession, or just having a business that thrives without you, having happy, engaged people makes a massive difference in terms of the business overall.
Yeah, I suppose if you step away from your business and you think about it as a vehicle, then your people are like the engine, right? They're keeping it running. It's all these different parts in the engine, and when they work together efficiently, that it turns over, it works, and you can change the driver. Whereas if they're not, then and it only works because the owner knows how to drive it in a certain way, then that's a very difficult thing to sell. So it makes a big difference.
So I want to get into your core four model a little bit, but before we do that, I'm really curious, kind of switching over to the owner side at the moment. You're back to building a business right now.
Mm-hmm.
How are you prioritizing happiness as you sort of build whatever you're doing are you thinking about that very intentionally this time around?
Yeah, I am. And I think you can have toxic happiness. I think you can be so obsessed with your life being perfect and having perfect work-life balance that nothing ever works. So I'm conscious of that as well. So for me, probably the biggest mindset shift is when I had my first business. What I recognize now is I had low self-confidence in my worth and my value. And that's a very common thing amongst business owners. And people think that if somebody can work hard and put themselves out there and start a business, they must be super confident. They must be to do that. But you can be confident in certain areas of your life and not confident in other areas. So I know for me that I had a low, and it's still something I work on. So like a low self-esteem piece around feeling like, am I worthy of success? Do I deserve it? Am I worthy of charging premium prices to provide a premium service? All of this stuff was going on. And what I ended up doing was just constantly working myself into the ground because of this narrative in my mind that you're not worthy of success. If anything goes wrong, you need to fix that right now because it shows what a failure you are, or how good you not are. You got to fix this right away. So you got that imposter syndrome, all of this stuff, and what that led to me doing was working like an idiot. And I think a lot of very successful people and hardworking business owners are actually more driven by inadequacy than they are by a genuine desire to be successful. So they work really hard, and people can get really successful and achieve a lot because of this feeling of inadequacy. So I'm very conscious of that now, and I very consciously slow myself down. And what I do is I have this mindset that, and I wrote the book as much for me as anybody else, that my goal is to grow this business whilst maintaining a level of happiness and a level of balance and a good level of health. And whenever I start to sacrifice that, because it's not a straight line, is it? Right. And whenever I start to sacrifice that, I question, why am I doing this? Is it possible to achieve what I want to achieve without doing this? So it's a mindset shift. But the key root at the key rule I have at the bottom is I will not sacrifice my health and my lifespan for a business. Like if I can't make it what it needs to be without unhealthy levels of stress, then I'm not going to do it. And that forces me to find ways to be more efficient.
I think you use some really interesting words there, like slowing down. And you can kind of compare to getting in the car, putting the foot down, and missing the off ramps. You just foot flat, white knuckles, and don't see the off ramps that are coming. Don't slow down and realize that, hey, maybe things are not going the right way here, and it's unhealthy. The whole business is not kind of going anywhere near where I wanted to go, and instead you're
Yeah,
just caught
being
up
a
in,
being a busy fool.
yeah, being a busy fool, going around the block.
Yeah, and I like to listen. I've read both of Alex Hormozy's books, and I listen to his stuff. And he's probably the polar opposite, and clearly much more successful in business than I am. But he's the polar opposite of this mentality, right? He's like, work as hard as you can. Like, if you want to be successful, you outwork the other person. And like, he's in great shape, and he's worth a lot of money, and has got a lot of business success behind him. Most of us can kind of only um, dream of. But I think about that, and I also think about people like Warren Buffett, who's like quite famously said, his approach to business is sit in the office and wait for phone calls to come in and see if it's a good idea. And I don't think there's a right and wrong, and I think I can't. I know that somebody could come and outwork me,
Yeah.
but there's not many people that could come and do this business and work more efficiently than me, because I'm obsessed about being more efficient, and also I'm happy. Like, I'm perfectly at peace with somebody outworking me, because I'm confident that what we're growing is unique. We're doing it in our own way, and it's helping our clients, and we'll get to where we need to get to. And I'd rather take my time and preserve my sanity and my health than wake up every day feeling stressed, like I've got to do more, because the work's never ending. Like,
Yeah.
even if you're an ice cream man, there's a never ending amount of things you could do. So where do you draw the line? When's it good enough?
And I think that comment you made about confidence earlier, and you take Alex Morosi and that level of success and what he defines as success, I think it sounds like you're measuring yourself against what you believe is successful Mike.
Yep.
And I think that feeds confidence instead of constantly comparing yourself to everybody else out there, whether you're a business owner or employee,
Mm.
and where you're at, setting your own definition of what success is, and may not be the same as what Alex's is.
Yeah, I think you've nailed it there. And I think whenever work with, if you're a business owner, this is a thing that, like you and I are, and we work business owners, this is a thing you've got to constantly zoom out on and realign yourself to. Like, what do I want? What does success look like for me? Like, forget what social media is telling me, forget what that person's done over there, because it's natural, right? It's natural for us to compare ourselves to other people. It's all to do with our evolution. But what do I want? Because perhaps what I want isn't what that person wants. There's so many different levels of revenue and profit you can reach in business. It's almost should have completely different names. Like, business is so many different games. So it's like, but what works for you? I was with an owner this week, and we were looking at the business goals and how things are going. And he's like, all I want, he's the owner, he's got a little leadership team in place. He's like, all I want with this business is I want to be able to have about 30 grand a year.
Yeah.
As the owner. Like, I've got a few other businesses that I focus on. I like this business because I like the people. I know it's not going to make me a millionaire, but I just want to be able to take about 30 grand a year from this. So I want the staff to be paid well, I want customers to be happy, and I want to take 30 grand. And he said, that's what made me happy. So we're like, brilliant. Now we build the business plan around that. And that's very that changes what the goals are, away from, we need to be this X amount of £1 million business at these profit margins. It's like, actually, that completely changes what we're focusing on, and the journey that we're outlining in front of us. So I think it's really, really important for you as an owner to constantly remind yourself, what do I want? What does success look like for me?
Yeah.
And am I setting this goal of success based on what I truly want, or am I trying to keep other people happy? Because if you're trying to keep other people happy, no matter how much of that goal you reach, you're still going to feel miserable. There's a great book by Eddie Jackie, who's passed away now, rest in peace, but he was a Holocaust survivor, and he wrote a book called The Happiest Man on Earth. And he talks
Okay.
about this a lot towards the end of his book. He lives in Australia, and he talks about how he's emigrated to Australia, so he's a foreign national, and he said there's lots of other foreign nationals there, and they're super successful. Like, they've got these massive businesses, and he said, and they're miserable. And the reason they've got these massive businesses is because they don't feel like they belong, so they've got to prove themselves. So they're working super hard and achieving a level of success, but not because it's what they want, but to try and prove that they're worthy. So no matter how successful they get, they end up unhappy. And I think that's a real risk for business owners. I think you're driven people, which is great, but
Yeah.
make sure that your drive is mainly driven by what you genuinely want in your life, not trying to please your parents or keep up with the Joneses. Because
Yeah.
what's the point? You're never going to be happy.
Yeah. I mean, I was in Aylesbury not too long ago, and I booked into a hotel there. I was working with a client, and one of your clients, and I walked in, and the lady behind the desk was probably one of the most amazing people I've had the opportunity to kind of be checked in
Yeah,
at a hotel.
be
Just
serviced by.
so, but so friendly.
Yeah,
As yeah, basically budget hotel. How do I make sure that you have everything you need? And I was like, wow, that was, compared to other places I've stayed, that was just fantastic. And
yeah,
then I saw a post from you earlier today, and they're all on the, or I think they're all on the floor doing sit-ups and that kind of thing. So I was wondering what goes on behind the scenes there.
yeah.
Is that some of the military coming through to
Yeah, if you want to make your staff happy, make them do subs.
make them do sit-ups?
Is that a question?
Yeah, like what actually goes on behind the scenes, and how, yeah, it walked into a hotel that is typically kind of, I guess, seen as a budget hotel, but
Yeah.
some of the best service I've ever had. And they put there was an image that went up today, and yeah, they were talking about how great it was to work with you. And the image, I think, had them doing sit up. So I was interested in what goes on behind the scenes.
So that happy to say the name. So that's Travelodge. So we do some
Yeah.
work with Travelodge. So big, this is a £1 billion a year company, or they were last year, I think. So massive company, over maybe 11,000 employees. I can't take the credit for that person on reception. I can't claim that was all because of me, but the company's got a good culture for a
Yeah.
start. So they do. And this is a really important thing to think about. If you're a small business owner and you might tell yourself, we're an accountancy, or we're in cleaning, or we can't do this in our business. It's a relatively low paid job. It's not saving starving children. It's not that. It's boring or whatever. But you can achieve high levels of employee motivation and engagement in any industry, because you're giving people work and you're giving people connection to other people and you're giving people a shared goal. So that's a really important thing to bear in mind. But yeah, Travelodge they've got a really good attitude. They've got really good culture. It's a difficult business, right? Hotels is a 24/7 business. Hotels are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So people have to work really hard. And I'm not going to pretend it's a perfect business. I'm sure they've got plenty of things that they need to improve and work on, but they know that business runs on people.
Yeah.
So they're innovative in how they invest in and support those people. And part of that is we do a lot of work we've developed with them a kind of bespoke development program for their leadership and management teams in the headquarters aspect of the business. We do some work with the operational side as well. And that's all focused around pretty much what we do in most businesses, but it's focused around, if we can make our managers and leaders, if we can give them the mindset to be healthy, to be happy, to be able to get results at work without sacrificing acceptable levels of work-life balance, then that's the culture that they're going to create below them. So health, for example, they're not doing sit-ups. They're like, I think they're rolling their calves and getting rid of knots and things like
Okay.
that. But
Yeah.
what we're doing is, we're in that particular workshop is we help them. We actually start with mindset. So we help them prioritize their health. So we're like, look, and I won't list off the whole program, John, because it'll take over the whole part. But I'll give you an example. So the emphasis of it's called Limitless. That's bespoke to Travelodge, so the Limitless program. So we want them to be able to get results at work, because the problem a lot of companies have isn't that the staff aren't motivated, it's that the staff are too motivated and then they work too hard and then they get burnt out, even though the data suggests otherwise. But obviously, if your managers are getting burnt out, then your employees are getting a poor experience. And I think that's the vicious circle that happens a lot of the time. I think businesses are taking on too much. Managers and leaders are getting stressed and burnt out. Then they're not spending enough time with their teams. The teams just feel like a cog in the wheel, and they get disengaged. So the data shows us that most people are unhappy at work. But it comes from in a weird roundabout way from people being very motivated and getting stressed and burnt out.
That's such a great point. Like, I mean, you see it all the time. People really do care. They get in, they
Yep.
fired up to start with, and ultimately they end up burning themselves out. And I kind of contrast the experience with Travelodge to getting on a flight and going home, and the experience that you have, you know, with some other kind of customer facing folks. And there's some fantastic ones there, but you make a really good point. They probably are being burnt out, and it's where all that frustration and conflict kind of comes from, and just almost getting to a point where you don't care. And that tarnishes the whole brand for a lot of those big businesses, any business.
Yeah, if you've got disengaged employees, it's customer satisfaction is always going to be one of the ramifications of that. You know, regardless, if you go into a restaurant and the staff don't want to be there, you're going to have a crap experience,
Yeah.
regardless of how nice the food is. If you go into a hotel and the person on reception doesn't even look at you because they're looking at their phone and they just throw their key card at you, like, you're going to be like, brilliant, even if it's got a jacuzzi bath. So yeah, your people make the experience, and if for people to have that energy and that drive and that passion to give customers a good experience, they've got to be engaged. They've got to want to be there, and achieving it's not easy, but it's also not rocket science. And this is the key thing that we get across to businesses, is that it's not about radical transformation a lot of the time. It's just about a change in attitude. And most businesses are guilty of having a very top-down system that doesn't even consider employee engagement because it's never had to before. Not because you've got evil people at the top who don't care and want to exploit the employees, just because they've never thought about it before. And the information only flows down. So if Steve's frustrated on reception because his computer takes half an hour to turn on, well, nobody above him is getting that information, or there's no channel for it to flow up. So he ends up being really annoyed and unhappy in that job because nobody's listening to him. But that's not because nobody cares. It's just because the system's top down, because that's what it's always been. So
Yeah.
there's thinking about communication and how we listen, and it's multifaceted. But at the top level, it starts with: is this a priority in our company? Like, do we role model it ourselves, or are we just workaholics? Are we prioritizing the health and the happiness of our and levels of engagement of our team? Because most businesses aren't, because they've never had to in the past. And if you do start making it a priority, this stuff will start to happen. But if you don't, you can, you know, have all the beanbags and give out all the fruit you want in the world, but you're going to have unhappy employees still.
It starts right at the top with that owner. So you have a model called the Core Four with four, if I remember rightly, employee, owner, customers, and what's the fourth one? Is it partners or
Business
business?
itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
How does that kind of tie together? Is it about keeping the balance?
Yeah. So I realized the core four model when I closed my first business and reflected. I did work with mentors and counselors and psychologists, and I really wanted to figure out. I'm a very systematic thinker. I want to figure out, why has that happened and why is it so common? Why am I making myself miserable in this business that I owned, and why is that so common amongst other business owners? And I thought about it a lot, and I ended up drawing out this model, and I was like, well, that makes sense. So within a business, you've always got four. A business is an economy of relationships. Then there's always four. There's always four, even if you're a solopreneur, right? So you've got the owner, or if you're a bigger business, the board, or whatever you want to call it. It's the leadership team. But small business, you've got the owner, right? So
Yeah.
they've got things that they put into the business and things they expect from it. You've got the customer, you've got your team, and you've got the business. So what an owner puts into a business changes at the stage of the business, but typically they put in funds, hard work, leadership, direction, and those kind of things, right? And what they expect from it changes. But at the start, often a business owner just expects freedom. So I'm happy. Like, I'm my own boss. I'm out of the rat race. I'm starting my own thing. I'm happy just to get a little bit of traction. As long as we're getting a bit of traction, we don't care, even if we're spunking all of our money, right? After we get a bit established, it changes. You tend to then want some money and some stability, and then you want some freedom. So things do change.
Yeah.
So you're putting all of that work, and what you expect from it changes slightly, but it tends to be a combination of freedom, finances, and impact. It tends to be those things. So as long as you're getting those things out, you're happy to keep putting the work in. The customer, let's go to the customer next. So the customer will put into your business money, right? They're gonna come to your business. If you think about it as a square, they're going to say, I will put money into this business, and what I expect in return is value. Okay, so I'm happy to give you money as long as what I get in return I perceive as being as equal to or more than the money that I give you. And as long as that relationship's being fulfilled, you're going to have customers. What they'll also put into your business is marketing. If they're really happy, they'll put in referrals and word of mouth. So they'll again, that'll lead to more money. So you've got to maintain that relationship. What most businesses do is they just focus on the customer and they screw over everybody else, including themselves.
Including themselves, yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah,
right? Exactly. So you got to keep the customer happy, right? Then you've got the team. If you've got a team, if you haven't got a team, you are the team, right? They're going to put in the ability for the service to be delivered. They're also, if they're a good team, going to help the service improve and get better. And what they expect in return from that is wages and a sense of fulfillment and meaning and belonging, right? So that's changed slightly over the years. It used to be they'll put in work and they expect a wage. Now it's they expect a bit more. So they need to be happy, right? And if they can't get paid enough or whatever, then that's going to be an issue over time. And then you've got the business as well, which isn't a person, but think of that as an entity. The business gives you the medium, it gives you structure. The business gives you the ability to function, right? So it gives you stability and legitimacy. And what it expects in return is profit. And if there's no profit or no cash, the business gets upset and eventually fails. So all four of those relationships have to work. And if one of those relationships is off, the business can't and won't last or certainly won't be anywhere near as efficient as it needs to be. So what happens a lot of the time is business owners will screw over all three of the elements, excluding the customer. So they'll not pay their team enough. They'll not pay themselves enough. They'll not make any profits because they don't want to put their prices up, or because they're nervous about charging more, or because they've got confidence issues and they just want to say yes to everybody. And what you end up doing is screwing your business over to please your customer.
And they don't consciously. I like what you've done there. That the business has actually been separated out. It's its own entity.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a sort of duty of good stewardship to that business as the owners. You almost need to look at it as separate from yourself. And I love what you've done there. You've separated those two things, plus the customer and the employee. And if you can, I guess, find the balance in between that whole lot. And I think employee experience is so important, because you get that right, you get the customer experience right, the whole thing starts coming together, and you're looking at the business and how do we grow that business.
Yeah, and most of the models are built on products, aren't they? Because they're built on the old industrial economy, which was the customer wants a product, so they give you money, they get a product, if they like the product, they're happy. Whereas now it's more service based, so they need a different experience. The employee used to just want wages and not be unemployed. So as long as and all you needed them to do was repetitive tasks. So it used to be, we'll give you minimum wage, you do the tasks.
Yeah.
And then it's relatively straightforward because the industry wasn't changing, to set your margins, to make it all profitable, and then for you to go and play golf every weekend with your wealthy family whilst everyone else is kind of like grafting away to make your business work. But it's very different today. So now it's generally speaking, we're a more service-based economy, but we do have still a lot of products. Customers expect they've got a higher level of demand from businesses now. They want more speed or a higher level of service, but they are willing to pay more a lot of the time, although we've got a lot of people that want cheap stuff. Employees don't just want work anymore. They want to, whether they know it or not, they want some spiritual level of fulfillment from their work. They want to develop. They want to know that they're getting better. They want to enjoy their work. They want to feel part of a team, and they want to get paid. So they want more. But again, they're willing to do more. Like if you do that, if you invest in your employees and help them realize what their strengths are and develop them and make them feel welcome and make them happy at work, they'll go above and beyond for you. They'll do more than what employees used to do.
Yeah.
They'll give you ideas. They'll give you innovation. So that they want more, but they'll give more.
You've got to be open to it. You've actually got to open up and say,
yeah. And there's nothing worse than when owners say you just can't get the staff these days. You're like, it's just a load of rubbish. You can. You're not doing it right. Like you've got to change. Perhaps you're not charging enough. Here's a big one. Like if you're not confident to charge what you need to charge to pay people well, then you can get the staff. You just got money confidence. You just got a confidence issue. Or perhaps you're not confident enough to deliver the level of service or product that demands that money. So then you try and stay cheap, and then you can't pay staff well, and then it's like, well, it's not going to work.
So I'm conscious of time, and you've got this book coming out. Typically, I'd sort of say to you, "What's the next project?" Woohoo! There it is, the happy business revolution.
Yep.
So 15th August, it comes out. I'm not going to ask you what you're working on next. I imagine you're ready to take a bit of a break. Are you going to?
Nah. I'm going to Thailand in October. So we've got although the first 4 days is a business event,
Yeah,
but we've got 3 weeks, so we're going to have a nice chill out then. But yeah,
fantastic.
but we've got the business club, which we're really pushing this year. So we do corporate work, but we've got the Better Happy Business Club, which is a membership option for small businesses who want to learn this methodology and implement the tools that we use. We also meet quarterly, so it's for UK based businesses this year. So we get to come and meet quarterly, 2-day events every quarter. We get together, mastermind, implement systems, look at our focus, set goals. A lot of this is just about being clear on what we are trying to achieve and what's most important, and what
That's
we can
so
say,
true.
no to.
Yeah,
It's really,
what you're filtering out. I
yeah,
agree
like
with
people
you.
are, oh, if you want work-life balance, you need to be amazing at time management. Not necessarily. You need to be amazing at prioritizing,
Yeah.
which is easier said than done. I'm as guilty as anybody else.
So you have a number of different offerings. On the one end, you have Limitless with Travelodge, and then on the other end, you're working with smaller businesses.
Mm-hmm.
I can kind of get those and get them into the show notes if anybody wants to connect with you.
Yep.
We'll get the link to the book in as well. Where's the best place to reach out to you? Is it your website or
Yeah, LinkedIn's
link?
the best. So we've got like free tools and free workshops on the website. I've got 2 websites. So, if you're a small business and you're interested in this stuff, it's betterhappybusinessclub.com.
Okay.
But if you're a larger business, so if you kind of like got over 100 staff, you're moving into that larger, or where you kind of need direct one-on-one support with your business. So typically that's like when after the 50 staff's kind of a bit of a
Yeah.
blurry ground. So regardless of which website you come through, we'll find the right solution. But yeah, if you're a larger business, just go to betterhappy.co.uk. Free tools again available there, and there's offerings available there as well. But yeah, you can contact us through there and get on our mailing list there, or you can get in direct contact with me on LinkedIn. Is probably the best place.
Okay. I'll make sure I get all those in there. Mike, I really appreciate the time. It's been fantastic speaking to you, and I
My
feel like
pleasure.
I've learned a lot more.
Good to chat with you as
Yeah.
always.